On this episode, we travel to Calgary, Alberta. We learn about the local organizing committee for the Walk21 conference. We talk with the Mayor of Calgary. We meet the Chief Urban Designer for Calgary. What did a transportation planner learn when she had her first child? Finally, we talk with Jim Walker, the Director of Walk21. Stay tuned.
We're in Calgary talking with Peter Sargis. What do you do?
Hi, John. I'm a physician, and being a physician, I've known for some time that walking is something that helps most of my patients with whatever their health conditions are. And so I'm an advocate for walking, and in that way I became part of the committee in the group that brought Walk21 to Calgary.
Okay, Walk21, the opening plenary is just a few minutes from now. What is Walk21?
Well, Walk21 is a combination of a global movement to promote walking in urban settings and the joys of walking and the benefits of walking. And it's also an annual conference series that's been going on for 18 years now. First held in London, I believe, in 2000. And now this is the third time in Canada. Previously has been in Toronto and Vancouver, and we're happy to have it in Calgary now for 2017.
Where'd the idea come from to bring the conference here to Calgary?
Well, it was actually a local Calgarian, a transportation engineer who works for Stantec, who had the idea that this was the right time for Calgary, which is not an iconic walking city. It's a city that was built in a time when we developed transportation systems for cars, but a city that needed to change and was starting to change. He approached some of the organizers from the Toronto program that was in 2007, specifically Jackie Kennedy, who was the champion there. And then Jackie knew that I had been involved with the Vancouver Walk21, and between us we came up with a plan where we would approach both the city and the university to be the leads in making a bid for Walk21 to come to Calgary. And so the unique thing about the Calgary experience is that it's actually the university in partnership with the city that's hosting, whereas traditionally it's the municipality that hosts the meeting. So I think that's a nice added benefit, bringing the learning institution and a strong academic focus to the study of walking.
Now, when you bring in the university, what departments get involved?
It turns out there's almost no faculties that wouldn't have a connection. So we have people from the Faculty of Engineering, obviously, Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Environmental Design, which trains all of the urban planners and architects, Faculty of Fine Arts, Faculty of Kinesiology. There literally isn't a single faculty that couldn't have a connection to walking. But obviously the ones I've mentioned have the strongest connection, both in terms of research focus, but also training professionals that do work that will touch on walkability in the future.
And then are students at the university involved or just as a faculty?
Absolutely, students are involved. In fact, the University of Calgary was one of the first academic institutions to offer travel to Walk21 conferences as part of their training for the past 3 years. So once we started bidding for Walk21, we actually started sending urban planning students to the Walk21 meetings as part of their practical learning. And we have a huge number of students actually involved with the program, either as presenters, attendees, or volunteers.
How does it benefit the students as part of their education to have something like this going on?
Well, from the university's perspective, one of our goals is to train people to think and work in an interdisciplinary way. And making a city walkable is an inherently interdisciplinary challenge. If you don't have the transportation engineers who are designing those systems, able to speak with and interact with urban planners who have a different lens, and draw on the advocacy that might come from, say, public health practitioners. If we can't create professionals or teach professionals how to interact across their disciplines, we're not going to be nearly as quick in addressing the challenge of making urban centers more walkable. But we think that at the University of Calgary we can establish a precedent for looking at the challenges of our time in an interdisciplinary way rather than in a traditional way that focuses on a narrow area of expertise.
And the City of Calgary, how is having the conference here going to change the city? How will it be different 5 years from now than if you hadn't brought Walk21 in?
Well, I think one thing is that the city has started to make efforts in its policy and planning documents to put pedestrians at the top of the pyramid in terms of priorities for transportation. But what the city would benefit from is the international expertise that's drawn to the community when you host a Walk21 conference. But also, I think the Walk21 conference gives the city administration, some confidence that in addition to developing the policies and the strategies, they're going to have the endorsement and support and connections to other cities when it comes to implementing the pedestrian strategy. And just last week, it turns out that our pedestrian strategy, which was passed by our city council approximately a year ago, won an international award from the Transportation Engineers Association. And so I think the combination of those kinds of awards plus an event like Walk21 is really going to give the city administration, and particularly the transportation department, a lot of energy and enthusiasm implementing the pedestrian strategy over the next several decades.
We're talking with the Mayor of Calgary, Naheed Nenshi. What was transportation like in Calgary 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, this is a typical Western North American city. Certainly you have public transit, you've got some sort of nods to pedestrian and cycle infrastructure, but it's a city that's about cars. And a lot of our built form has been about cars. And over the course of the last 10 or 15 years, we've been much, much more deliberate about investments in transit and particularly in active infrastructure. So we have cycle tracks downtown now. But mostly, we also have really been working on a new pedestrian strategy called Step Forward, which really is about making it easier for people to walk and understanding that every commuter, whether they take transit or they drive, is a pedestrian for some part of their journey.
What was the inspiration for Step Forward?
Well, we really realized we weren't doing a great enough job. And while it remains a relatively safe place for pedestrians, we don't have a ton of pedestrian injury, it doesn't remain a particularly convenient place for pedestrians. The downtown of Calgary is defined by railway tracks running through the southern end of downtown, and the underpasses for people to walk under the railway tracks were dingy and dank and dripping and frankly a bit dangerous. And really we realized that we weren't giving enough credit to the built form and how that can encourage people to walk more.
What does it mean for the city to make it more pedestrian friendly? What happens once you get pedestrians here?
Well, it means that you live life on a more human scale. You live life at the speed of the foot. And it means people interact more. Ultimately, it means more eyes on the street. It means a safer community. And it also means a healthier population.
Where does having the Walk21 conference fit into this vision you have?
We've been talking about this conference for so many years because we wanted to brag. We wanted to show off what we've done well, but we also wanted to be selfish and have experts from around the world here so we could pick their brains and figure out how to make our pedestrian environment even better.
So if I were to come back to Calgary in 5 years, what would you like to be able to show me?
I think you'd see more people walking. I think you'd see a built form even in brand new suburbs that was more conducive to helping people walk to the store or walk to school with their kids. And that's a personal one for me. I've launched something called the Mayor's Walk Challenge, trying to capitalize on the Fitbit craze to get people to incorporate more walking into their daily lives and particularly make sure kids are walking to school.
What is it about kids walking to school that can capture people's attention where older adults might not?
This is absolutely critical because when you get people into the habit of walking early, or when you get parents into the habit of walking with their kids, it shifts everything. You know, one of the most dangerous places for pedestrians is any residential road that has a school just before the morning bell. You got parents dropping their kids off, double and triple parking, you've got illegal crossing, you've got people jumping out in front of cars. It's not a very nice environment. And if we can encourage kids to walk to school, it's better for the parents. We know it actually helps the kids' educational attainment. They do better in school if they get that little bit of physical activity in the morning. And it's better for the neighborhood. And so getting that piece that people can really get into their own brains, I think helps a lot. And I say to a lot of parents, look, maybe you live too far. Maybe you go to a specialized school. But you know what? If your kid takes the school bus, make sure you're walking to that bus stop with them. If you really have to drive, don't go all the way to school. Park 2 or 3 blocks away. Walk with your child. You get a little bit of exercise in the morning as well. You leave 5 minutes earlier and you get those sort of benefits and you don't have to deal with that dangerous school drop-off situation. I say to schools, think about walking school buses where the kids meet in groups and they walk in together and the older kids walk the younger kids, or perhaps some parent volunteers walk in. There are lots of solutions even in auto-centric neighborhoods.
And the city teamed up with the university to, how does that work, the city combining forces?
You know, we have great post-secondary institutions here in Calgary. I'm a professor at one of the universities. I'm a graduate of another one of them. And I'm thrilled that the University of Calgary and the city have been able to do this together. It's a real show of how you can bridge that town-gown divide and help the researchers at the university really work on stuff that makes a difference in people's lives, which energizes them and gives us access to those great brains. So I think it's a wonderful partnership.
We're talking with David Down, who's the Chief Urban Designer for the City of Calgary. What does an urban designer do?
Well, an urban designer does a lot of things in the City of Calgary in particular, but I have a team of urban designers. They all have architecture and design backgrounds. We develop design policy for the City of Calgary. We review applications, both internal and external development applications for the City of Calgary. And we do a lot of advocating for a higher quality of design, urban design, architecture. A lot of discussion about design.
And I see a lot of construction going on around Calgary at the moment. How is your office involved in all that?
We are pretty heavily involved. It's a busy time for us. I think that Calgary is undergoing a bit of a transformation. There is a lot of interest in this city about changing from a really car-centric community, and I think that's the reputation that Calgary has as an auto-centric community. There's a lot of interest in changing that. We know that that takes time, so a lot of discussion around how we focus more on pedestrian realm, how we create more comfortable pedestrian realm, how we encourage people to get out of their cars, how we provide transit that's convenient for them and get them to and from work. So all of these new developments now are being asked to take the pedestrian and the cyclist into consideration and provide a higher quality pedestrian realm and cyclist realm and just a higher quality streetscape to change this image of car-centric city to something that's a little more like the cities that we love in other parts of the world that are already there, already pedestrian-centric cities.
And I've noticed you got a fair bit of construction going on not just buildings, but some of your streets are getting redone.
Yeah.
What are you doing there?
Well, for exactly those reasons, we've been analyzing how we allocate the carriageway, the vehicle portion of the streets. We're instituting ideas like road diets. We're narrowing lanes, and we're increasing sidewalk areas, and we're adding a lot of on-street cycle tracks throughout the city. So it's a big change. It's a big change for motorists that are used to having the road to themselves. They're going to have to learn to share, and that's happening. The culture's changing.
And how long is this process going to take? Are people starting to notice the difference yet?
Well, like anything involving construction, anything that involves discussion, community engagement, approvals, regulations, these things all do take time. I think that Calgary is an evolving city, as I say. We're nowhere near done yet. We've got decades of this work to be done, but I think in the last 10 years there has been significant change already, And with that significant change, people are beginning to come around to the idea. And as I say, the public really is involved in this discussion of design and the importance of design, urban design, architecture to building a better city. So it's very exciting.
We're talking with Jennifer Black, who's a transportation planner with the City of Calgary. What does a transportation planner do?
Well, my group, we work on the active transportation network, so we do the cycling planning, the walking planning, and we also do traffic calming in local neighborhoods.
And how has your view of being a pedestrian changed over the last couple of years?
Yeah, well, it's definitely changed a little bit. I used to ride my bike most places, and then as I was getting more and more pregnant, I sort of had to stop doing that. And I found walking to be quite a bit of a challenge because our streets get really icy here in Calgary. We have a lot of freeze-thaw cycles, so it was incredibly icy out on the streets. So I was taking transit a lot more and walking really slowly to and from transit being pregnant. And I think that gave me sort of a window of what it might be, to be, frail or a little bit more concerned about falling. And then now having a child often strapped to me or in a stroller, I feel like I'm hyper aware of traffic safety, and crossing the street is a big concern for me now. So I feel like I was aware of these things before, but I've experienced it firsthand what it is for some other people to experience our pedestrian network.
What are some of the little things about the sidewalk environment that you might not really have paid attention to before that you notice now?
Yeah. I mean, a big thing is, accessibility, because, having a stroller, it's hard to get up and down stairs. And so going somewhere and finding that there's a set of stairs to get down is an issue. And usually when you have a stroller, people are able to help you out. So I just wonder, how is it for someone in a wheelchair who may not have, someone to carry them down a set of stairs? And so it makes me more risk averse. I'll go, the less direct route in order to make sure that I don't get stranded somewhere, but it's often the long way around a building or a block. And I think, if you have mobility challenges, and that's not always easy to do when you're in a wheelchair, to go the long way around just to avoid that risk.
How can that increased knowledge, that increased awareness, show up when you're back in the office, working on planning in the future?
Yeah, I think we just need to be thinking about it all the time, and we need to be going out and experiencing what it's like for different people. Going out with different tools you can use to mimic what it would be like to have different disabilities, so that people working on these projects can see and make sure we're addressing all these issues holistically. So we're not regarding something as out of scope. We're making sure we're really focusing on making it accessible for everybody.
We're in Calgary, Alberta, talking with Jim Walker, who's Director of Walk21. What is Walk21?
Well, we started Walk21, it's actually 18 years ago now, to actually create a community. It's become a movement for pedestrians globally around the world.
And you have a conference by the same name that just finished up. I imagine you're finally going to catch a little sleep. What happened at your conference today, or this week?
Well, we've been in Calgary this week, and it's been another amazing event, 18th event that we've hosted. And we came to Calgary because it was one of those places that wasn't yet sorted, and they needed some support and some help. And I think it's quite a doable place. It's auto-centric, but there's a real willingness for change. They've got a great mayor, a great team. And what was interesting for the first time, really, was that connection to the university, who really wanted to be part of the team and help as well. So we brought together about 500 people from around the world, as we normally do, and we've been giving some advice, scratching our heads, helping out a bit, and going on lots of workshops, and we've had some awesome content as well in the plenary sessions.
Have people figured out how to take an auto-centric place and make it into something that's pedestrian-friendly, walkable?
I think the theory is there. We know how to do that. You can go back. in order to go forwards. And I think what people are talking about here is a renaissance of walking, and to put that back into the street network in the way that we redesign. And we've talked a lot about equity here this week, because we've heard from so many different communities that don't feel appreciated or provided for. In fact, the word that kept coming up was how people felt as though they've been really treated meanly by the way that cities have become designed. And I think that's not good enough. And what we've been really expressing is how, if we can manage our cities on 400-metre movements, get things right within sort of 15-minute episodes around the city for lots of destination points, whether it's the transit stops, the hospitals, the schools. Certainly here in Calgary, I had a real bad experience even just getting into the main Greyhound station. We've got to get that fixed. We've got to get that right, because that's where everybody is. And what we've proved is that where that has been turned upside down, and it's changed the model. Certainly here in Calgary, and it's happening around all across North America, if not around the rest of the world. Yeah, you can get people to come back onto the streets and really enjoy that experience.
And you had usual plenary sessions and the breakout sessions and the windowless meeting rooms, but you had the walking workshops. What do people learn from those that they couldn't possibly learn staying in the conference hotel?
That people always like to get out because apart from the fact that they're restless, they want to see this stuff. They want to experience it. As we know, when you're on your feet, you really feel and experience the soul of the city. And so there's no point in us just showing lots of pictures. We've just got to get out there and explore it and understand it. So we took them to some of these new developments where there's some of the more enlightened developers are actually realizing that they have to build this stuff, build it in and get it right at the beginning, not just because they know it's good for health and equity and all these points that we all know about, but actually, if we're really honest, they can charge more money for it because it's the sort of place that everybody wants to live in. So we've done a lot of that, but we've also taken them and shown them some problems. There's a lot of parts of this city where you have to wait so long to cross the road, and where actually there's hardly any sidewalks, and we've got too many really wide roads. And we've been asking about how we might reallocate some of that space, how we might slow some of that speed, and how we might put a bit more equity back into the city.
Would Calgary be more like, would a lot of North American cities be more like Calgary than some of the other places you've been to, like Vienna or Munich?
It was a tough one for us because I must say it's very, when you're in the sweet shop, you go for the sweetest, stickiest thing. And, we've had such lovely invitations from some of the most walkable places. So, we've been delighted to be. We worked out the other day, I think we've been in at least 13, if not 14 now, of the most livable, successful, walkable cities in the world. We've had we've had 18 conferences. So that's been great. But we've got to be realistic. I think we recognize, and people have said to us, this is great to see Vienna, Melbourne, Barcelona, Copenhagen, Portland, even parts of New York now. We can see it turn around, but it just feels like too hard. It doesn't feel realistic enough. I don't understand how we can get that far ahead, within a reasonable length of time while I'm still in my job and I've got the mayor doing his or her thing. So what we've done is we came here, we took that risk of saying work in progress. And I think people have really appreciated that, and I think everyone's taken something away, and no more so than the city of Calgary, who I think has probably got a little bit nearer into realising how to actually make these things happen, how to deliver that policy. And we've certainly been made well aware in this conference that too many cities have got a decent policy. They might have focused all their time on doing that, but only about 46% actually ever gets implemented. And if we don't get that stuff right, if you don't actually watch that they're measuring and implementing and actually delivering on the vision, then we're no further ahead. It just looks good.
And you got a new initiative, the Walk21 Foundation. What's that all about?
Well, it's an exciting time for us, but we're nearly 21 ourselves. It's about time we grew up and expanded, and really we've made such a community around the world now. We know about 5,000 people in about 60 different countries. It's become really quite a family, and we decided it was time to let go of it being just about a couple of people in the center and actually mobilize that community into some real global action. So we've set up this foundation. It's we launched it here at the conference in Calgary on the first day. We've had some great, really exciting conversations with people. We've set up a board, And we're going to coordinate some projects, and we've decided that instead of us just going to a few places a year, helping where we can, we're going to open source all this stuff. We're going to put everything online so that it's not difficult to find the resources. We'll produce the main templates. We'll try and get some foundation funding, some core funding, so that all this representations that we're being asked to do with, like the World Health Strategy on physical activity, the climate change stuff at COP23 later this year, the stuff on congestion and helping cities with movement and flow and place design and stuff. We'll just put it all up there. And I think then hopefully everyone can benefit from it. And also what we're going to try and do is just network people a bit better as well, because that whole community can't just exist through us. We need to somehow or other make it a bit tighter and a bit more organic and more connected. So this is our agenda. We're not exactly sure how we're going to do it all, but if you set up the structure and you give people the tools, we reckon it'll be pretty compelling, and people have said they can't wait. So we'll do what I can to actually raise some funds and get those things built as soon as we can.
A few minutes ago, you announced next year's Walk21 conference.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
We are absolutely thrilled to be going to Bogota. Bogota in Colombia is the capital city. The mayor, if you don't know already, is Enrique Peñalosa. He's actually taught about sustainable transport, and he was that mayor who really made a difference, particularly in Latin America, and I would say right now is probably the best mayor for walking in the world. What he's actually done is he's focused on equity, on sustainability and access and public transit, particularly for people who haven't got any other choices. And so he's built his city with public transit throughout that moves 2.5 million people every day. Getting that access right so that people can get into that transit for that sort of first and last mile, as we know, is absolutely critical. And he knows it's not perfect yet, but the community want it. And you have to put the lines in, you have to connect up those communities, you have to be doing these things for people, but now we have to get into the detail. And we're there to support him with that work and also use him as an inspiration, really, to other mayors around Latin America and if not around the rest of the world, to come see what he's done and also to sort of just help him out with some of that detail.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.
So this is one of our plus 15s. They're called plus 15s because they're 15 feet above the ground. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the largest connections of above ground pathways connecting downtown. These are very controversial by urban planners. Many people say, well, they drag the life off the street. I could not disagree more. Because if you look at the one behind me, you can see how many dozens of people are walking through it right now. People aren't dumb. If they can go outside, if the weather is worth it, they'll go outside. But when it's cold, these plus 15s allow people to go for a walk at lunchtime or to walk to their meeting instead of driving or taking a taxi to their meeting. And I think that it is actually a tremendously successful way of keeping people walking when the weather is inclement.